A poignant day in history. 11 years ago today, um, Ghana lost a sitting president. John Evans Atta Mills died on a day like this. I'm sure everybody remembers where they were when the news came. I was in Wales. I was in Swansea, visiting some family friends, and I remember my little sister was with me, and she's the one who got the phone call. Back then, social media was not as active as it is today, but she got a phone call from someone in Ghana who told her, and she screamed at the top of her voice. I will never forget. It just felt like we had been, like the whole nation had suffered a huge blow. And wherever you are, as long as you have any ties with Ghana, you felt the loss. You felt the loss. And it's not only because he was our president and the president had died, but because of who he was and what he represented. I suspect that there are people today who will be remembering with fondness some of his most poignant moments when he stood up to Western powers seeking to kowtow us into taking up some cultural stance that they supported when it came to this whole LGBTQ business, and how he stood up to that, how he raged against the corruption at the ports, and several of the moments that made him stand out for who he was. I mean, it's hard to forget any president, any person who has had such an impact on the nation, but for him in particular, there was just a certain bittersweetness about his passing that suggested that it might be some time before we have Nipa Uye Nipa them sitting in the big seat.
One of the things I think many would agree, and I'm sure you may have had discussions about people saying, but for his health, Mills would have been, one of the best, if not the best president. Let's say one of the best presidents in this country. And, he's the only person, one of the few persons that you could not accuse him of being corrupt. You're not going to accuse Professor Mills of being corrupt. Because everything people said was against members in his government. But for Professor Mills, he was the one person who, at the point in time, had spoken about being father for all. And yes, you would see that. One person who encouraged all his appointees, particularly those who were in his kitchen cabinet, to be very, very careful. And I've heard stories of, people, a businessman wanting to meet Professor Mills at all cost. One of his aides, facilitated the meeting. But while they were leaving, he called the aide and said, do not take any money from this man. The businessman actually, subsequently left, gave the aide thousands of dollars. Wow. The aide rejected it. Now, they went for an AU meeting, and the businessman, in the midst of all African presidents, said, oh, your boy disgraced me the last time. I was telling Professor Mills. When I gave him money, he threw it on the tarmac when he went to drop me. And Professor Mills would come back and say, did you hear that? If you are taking that money, he would come back and say you took money from him. And that's why I always say, don't take money. His per diem when he was given, he said, what do I need this for? Now, this is a man that was loved by many. I think that even those whom at the point in time had consistently said he wasn't feeling well, he was sick, when he died, the whole nation came to a standstill. I had returned from work. I actually went to the castle that day because one of my friends was going to be dropped at the castle. Wanda Madilo, who was dropped at the castle. They had appeared on my show on Prime FM together with Asomdwehene, who's passed on. May he so continue to rest in peace. And so we dropped Wanda, and I wasn't feeling well, so I just got down at the Accra Mall, went home. I was living around Sakumono. I was sleeping when I returned from the hospital, and I got a call from my brother that it's been reported that Professor Mills had died. He died at 2:15 p.m. on the day. You've talked about, when he went to the ports, he actually merged all our, revenue collection agencies into the Ghana Revenue Authority as we have it today. Yes, J. Kufuor had we had discovered oil under the administration of J. Kufuor. It was during the administration of Professor Mills that we started, commercial production of oil. He turned the first, battling for the commencement of oil. It was also under his regime that we had over 14% growth that has been touted, all the time. That Ghana was the fastest growing economy at a point in the world. I mean, he played his part, and if there's anything we can learn from him, we can learn his personality. This was a man who was convinced on serving his nation. Yes, no human being is a saint, but for Professor Mills, if you can say anybody within the administration lets the administration down, you wouldn't say it was Professor Mills. May his soul continue to rest in peace.
That's